This is the Gridiron Guesser, and this is our top 10 takeaways from Week 2 of college football. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and turn on those notifications for all our weekly picks and takeaways. At number 10, Colorado is no fluke. If you thought Colorado might be a fluke or just surprised an overrated and depleted TCU team in Week 1, think again. The Buffs dismantled Nebraska in Week 2 and appear to be headed to Oregon in a couple of weeks undefeated if they can get by a lackluster Colorado State team next week. Colorado is not just decent, they're good. Now, are they a real contender for the Pac-12? Probably not. But they are a team capable of winning 7 or 8 games this season and beating 1 or 2 of the top dogs along the way. Shedeur Sanders has been fantastic and Travis Hunter is a star. But there's more to this team than just 2 players. And they appear to be very well coached and disciplined in all their assignments. The improvement on defense from Week 1 to Week 2 was very noticeable, and if that continues, expect Colorado to find themselves in the mix come November. Number 9. No one remembers how you won come the end of the season. They'll only remember that you won. That statement can definitely be said about both Utah and Oregon after Week 2, as both Pac-12 teams escaped Big 12 country with wins over Baylor and Texas Tech, respectively. Utah again found a way to win without star quarterback Cameron Rising as the Utes rolled the dice with Nate Johnson down the stretch, and he delivered, driving the Utes to 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns to seal the win. Baylor had a chance to tie it up and probably got fucked with the no pass interference call, but again, no one remembers how you won at the end of the season, only that you won. Oregon found themselves in a dogfight with a desperate Texas Tech team for much of Saturday night, needing 20 fourth-quarter points to rally for an 8-point win and cover, most importantly. If either Utah or Oregon is in the college football playoff race come November, remember Week 2 as a defining moment for the season of both of these teams. Number 8. The Miami Hurricanes are for real. The Hurricanes blasted Texas A&M on Saturday in a game that was not as close as the 48-33 final score indicated. The Canes' early self-inflicted miscues allowed A&M to take an early 17-7 lead before Miami calmed down and got things under control. Miami did struggle to run the ball on the Aggies, but quarterback Tyler Van Dyke decided to start slinging it around to the tune of 5 touchdowns and 374 yards through the air on a supposed strong Aggie secondary. Miami looks like a totally different team in Mario Cristobal's second year, and that could have the Canes in the ACC title mix. Will the game with Florida State later this season actually mean something for the first time in what seems like decades? It probably will. College football is on hurricane alert. Number 7. On the other side of the rise of the Hurricanes is the continued struggles of Jimbo Fisher and the Texas A&M Aggies. All offseason, the focus was on fixing their offensive struggles. So in comes Bobby f***ing Petrino. Week 1 went well. Week 2, well, it wasn't bad, but then the defense falls apart, can't tackle, and gives up 5 touchdowns through the air. Oh, and let's not forget the special teams allowing a kickoff return for a touchdown. All of this adds up to uneasiness and doubt around the program starting to form early again this season. If you watched our preseason preview, we didn't buy into the A&M hype and predicted the Aggies to finish 5th in the SEC West and 3-5 in conference play. And this is exactly why. The problem is Jimbo Fisher. And until he's gone, the Aggies will continue to be their own worst enemy. Number 6. Sticking in the SEC, our preseason prediction of a 3-way tie for first place in the SEC West doesn't look so crazy after all through Week 2. So far, we found out that LSU is not the crown jewel of 2023 that so many experts thought they were, and Alabama is a far cry from their high points of a few seasons ago. That third team, Arkansas, well, they're 2-0, having played 2 nobodies to this point. All 3 teams appear to have some issues. Alabama still looks shaky on the offensive line, similar to last season, and there is definitely still uncertainty at the quarterback position. LSU's struggles in the secondary are going to be real this season, and Jaden Daniels' development from last season doesn't seem as far along as we may have thought. As for Arkansas, the Razorbacks have played 2 cupcakes and have struggled mightily to run the football, which is a cornerstone of their offensive game plan. There is not going to be a dominant team in the SEC West this season. A 2-conference loss team will probably win this division. So expect a little chaos at the top. Number 5. Kansas is going to be good again in 2023. In case you missed it on Friday night, the Kansas Jayhawks whipped Brett Bielema's Fighting Illini. Yes, in football. Head coach Lance Leipold is for real. Kansas ran and threw all over the Illinois defense, and the Jayhawks stuffed the Illini offense most of the night, only allowing about 340 yards of total offense, much of which came late in the game when the outcome was no longer in doubt. Listen on this one, Kansas is for real. They are going to be a major headache this season for the likes of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas State. The Jayhawks have a hell of a good head coach. For their sake, I hope they can keep him in a place like Lawrence. Big schools will surely be calling soon. Number 4. The Big Ten West is going to be a struggle this season. Yikes. Wisconsin, our preseason pick to win the Big Ten West, didn't look good at all in their loss to a pretty good Washington State team. But again, pretty good. Wisconsin should not have problems with pretty good teams if they're really a favorite to win the division. Iowa once again failed to score that magical 25 points, but won another ho-hum game over their rival Iowa State. Minnesota did what they had to do to get by Eastern Michigan, although it was 10-6 at the halftime. Purdue and Northwestern both beat nearly lifeless opponents in Virginia Tech and UTEP, and then Nebraska and Illinois got hammered by Colorado and Kansas, respectively. The Big Ten West is definitely not very good again this season. Expect this to be much like 2022, when it looked like all the teams were fighting to not represent the conference in Indianapolis. If you're a Big Ten fan, focus on the East. The East is dynamite. It's a shame the Big Ten still has divisions, as we're not sure that one of these teams would even finish in the top 4 as the conference as a whole. Number 3. Are we seeing the rise and fall of conference dominance this season? The Pac-12 is clearly the best conference through week 2 of the season. And yes, it's early, but with Colorado, USC, Oregon, Oregon State, Washington, UCLA, Utah, and even Washington State already flexing some serious muscle this season, the Pac-12 appears to have the best chance as of now to possibly field 2 teams in the college football playoff. And that's saying something for a conference that has struggled to put even a team in the playoff since its inception. Don't be fooled either. This is not USC and everyone else. Washington, Oregon, Oregon State, and Utah are serious contenders to find a spot in the playoffs this season. Michael Penix and Bo Nix are stars for Washington and Oregon. And don't forget about DJU at Oregon State, and then Utah when Cam Rising returns. The Pac-12 is loaded. Start staying up later and watch some really good football. On the other side, the SEC looks just average. During week 1, we saw losses by LSU, South Carolina, and Florida. Then in week 2, losses by Alabama and Texas A&M. Georgia looks very shaky so far. Tennessee struggled with Austin Peay. Kentucky survived Eastern Kentucky. Missouri barely escaped Middle Tennessee. And Auburn only managed 14 points in a win over Cal. The SEC looks to be down this season. We'll know a little bit more about how the SEC stacks up against other conferences after week 3 when Missouri hosts Kansas State and Arkansas entertains BYU, and a host of other SEC teams open up conference play. But for now, this looks to be the lowest the SEC has been in a very long time. Number 2, the Gridiron Guesser continues to win. Hey, we went 4-3 against the spread in week 2, meaning we are now 10-5 against the spread over the last 2 weeks. It's still early in the season, so hop on, subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and start winning with us. We'll be back on Friday to give you the 5 biggest picks for week 3. So subscribe and turn on those notifications so you won't miss our picks. We won money last weekend, and you should too. Number 1, Texas is back. Seriously, they're back. Steve Sarkisian has Texas back in the middle of the national title hunt in only his 3rd season in Austin. Look, whether Alabama is the Alabama we have all come to know, or they're not, no one walks into Tuscaloosa against Nick Saban and controls nearly the entire game unless they're a really good football team. Quinn Ewers is outstanding. The Texas defense is stout, and the Longhorns controlled both lines of scrimmage. So, good QB, good defense, good line play, yeah, that translates into a really good football team. The key for Texas is to just not f*** it up. They are clearly the odds-on favorite to win the Big 12 and be in the playoff. But here's what can't happen. The Longhorns can afford to f*** up once in conference. but they can't afford two f-ups. Texas has some challenging games ahead, but most of them come at home. Lose one, fine. Lose two, they're losing their college football playoff spot. Texas is good. They're really good, but their margin of error is still very small. Thanks for joining us on the Gridiron Guesser's Top 10 Takeaways from Week 2 of college football. We'll be back later in the week for our 5 picks of the biggest games of Week 3. Until then, subscribe, like, and turn on those notifications. We'll see you next time.